All good. So I assume that my talk today will be fairly different to most presentations you will have heard here today. So usually on HiveFest, I've put the focus on all the projects I've been working on, which are at the moment quite a few. This year, however, I want to share my story on how coping with depression through actually running away from it in a lot of times has inspired me to create several travel-related projects, which will also talk about a little bit in this presentation. So let me just jump to the next slide. So I think while I mostly like come off as a person, who really enjoys life. I actually have a long history of suffering from depression, and that started when I was a child. So my parents fought a lot, and when I was 11, my mom ended up in the hospital after being physically assaulted with a hammer by my dad. So divorce followed from there, and things kind of just kept getting worse, right? So in my first year of high school, I was very heavily bullied and I didn't have many friends. Often contemplated suicide, and by my third year in high school, I was skipping school, getting drunk, getting high, and staying out late, oftentimes. I fought with my mom a lot and ended up going to live with my dad, not because he was a great parent, really, but just because he left me alone. So that's kind of, where all the items that you saw in the first slide are going to come back and, gives a little bit of an insight. So the year after I started living with my dad, he went to Bangladesh. So my dad is originally from Bangladesh and came back with a wife, and I didn't know anything about that. To say that she and I didn't get along would be a really big understatement, and it created a lot of tension with my dad trying to limit my freedom, which really enraged me because I've gotten so used to just being able to do whatever I wanted to do at that point. So on a daily basis at the time, I was stealing from stores. I was getting high and drunk, regardless of whether or not I had school the next day. And the worse things were getting, the more depressed I became. And I ended up running away when it all kind of just combined and became too much. I physically run away at the age of 16, and I managed to get the whole circus out, really. There were child focus posters, news articles, missing person TV ads about me, and so on. Then 10 days after I ran away, I got caught in the south of France. And, oftentimes people have asked me if I felt guilty for running away. But I think if I'm completely honest, the answer is no, not really. I still look at those days as some of the best in my life. It's just that bliss, that freedom, that sense of awe at the world. And I think most of all, I realized that, not everything is as shit as I thought. There is beauty, there is something great here as well. Um, and then at the age of 17, I started my first online project. And it was making me a decent passive income. And I also started working weekends in sales. And so with my finances being quite great at the time, definitely for, being a kid in high school, my interest in school dropped even further. And I started skipping more to travel all over Europe, really. So during that year, I also entered into a relationship, and here was a girl like perfectly content within society, whilst I completely resented it. However, there was this weird thing where she made me realize I kind of enjoyed little things within society as well, like walking the dog or going for a cup of coffee or having dinner at a parent's place. Those kind of simple, small things. And at the age of 18, this really confused me a lot. Like seeing the upside of a life within society made me extremely anxious and doubt kind of my wild way of living. So what did I do? The obvious thing for me at the time was I'd run away from it all, quite literally to Spain. And then I cheated on her, lied about it, and I think my dishonesty there kind of broke the both of us, and all that doubt that I kind of had hidden within me just poured out, and I started really self-sabotaging myself a lot. I remember my friends just seriously worrying about me at the time. So I was trying to escape, and I just started traveling even more, drinking even more heavily, started gaming a lot, just like anything to get away from my current kind of life, my current way of living. But guess what? At the end of the day, you can't really escape yourself, and I think it took me 3 years to just come to terms with that. So it was rough. Um, and then after graduating high school, I worked 2 months in sales and saved enough money so I could escape, again. And I didn't really have a plan. But I ended up hitchhiking all over the United States and eventually ended up in Costa Rica. And despite this freedom, and I still look at it as the best year I had in my life, I still was really struggling with a lot of my inner demons. And as you can see, I put this like small piece of prose that I wrote back in the day up on the slide. So just take a quick picture if you want. I don't have time to read it out for you, so I'll give you it's like 3 seconds to take a picture, and then I'll continue. All right. So when I returned back home to Belgium, I started studying IT, but it turned out that the whole studying thing wasn't quite what I wanted. And so instead, I came up with this kind of crazy and fun idea where I wanted to rent out inflatable boats from inside of a tuk-tuk along the rivers in my hometown. I thought it would be a great opportunity to socialize with travelers and students, have a good time in the sun, and make enough money over the summer months to travel or start other projects in the winter. So I think, if there's any Belgians in here, they will completely agree with me that starting a business in Belgium is a bureaucratic nightmare. But after about 2 months, everything was ready, permits were in order, except for one that was still kind of pending, but it was already confirmed over the phone. So I decided to make all the necessary investments. I shipped a tuk-tuk from China. I bought inflatable boats from the Netherlands. And then all of a sudden, the pending permit got denied. So I found myself 5,000 euros in debt with no real options to get out of it. And to make matters worse, the woman I was dating at the time and I were having a lot of issues. So I just kind of quickly found myself sinking into that empty void of depression again. And that's with no real way out. I slumped back into that depression, like I said, and to pay the bills and slowly start paying off my debt. I would occasionally work in sales, a job that I had completely sworn off for reasons that are behind this talk. I also spend a lot of time in solitude, just behind my laptop, either gaming or trying to understand this whole blockchain thing people were talking about. And that's kind of how I found out about Hive, really, well, Steam at the time. And so I slowly became more and more involved within the community and was really perplexed by the help I received there. I wanted to start giving back, and so in 2017, Steam at World Map was born as kind of my way of giving back. It has since been rebranded as Pinmapple following the launch of Hive. So initially, I spent like long hours in Discord chats where I met Shugal and Living UK Taiwan, two original and still current members of the Pinmapple team back then. Back then, at the time, I was still in debt and I was unable normally to attend Steamfest 2 in Lisbon. But as luck would kind of have it, I won a free ticket, and so I hitchhiked my way over, and then I ended up winning the hackathon, as you can see in the picture here. After that, the price of Steam skyrocketed, and so that kind of helped me pay off my debt and gave me some breathing room. And that was kind of really the start of my Hive dev journey, where like suddenly it really gave me purpose and a way to move forward again, which is really amazing and really incredible if you think about it. And then, oh, I don't know what happened. I messed up my slide, I think. So at Steamfest 3 in Krakow in Poland, I announced that I wanted to improve upon Pinmapple by creating a complete standalone mobile social media app for travelers called Have You Been Here? So it's quite a huge undertaking for one developer, and at the time with no mobile dev experience either. So the first few months were kind of rough, definitely financially, as I was barely generating any income whilst I was working on the project. But kind of luckily for me, a startup incubator found out about Have You Been Here, and they gave me some limited support for a few months and fronted my trip to Steamfest 4 in Bangkok, which was just amazing. The objective was to deliver a mobile app that seemed promising at Steamfest, and then I showcased an early beta version of Have You Been Here. We started working more closer together, and talks about 4 million euros in external investments. We're starting to become quite commonplace. So you get really kind of your hopes up, right? But unfortunately, things didn't quite work out, and that partnership was ended. Of course, this was bad news financially, but with the app about to take off, I wasn't really worried about it. And then a global pandemic stopped travel dead in its track, and my finances kind of dwindled once more. And I think at that point, I was just mentally exhausted and tired of continuously pushing myself, only to hit another wall, right? And it's at this point I actually decided to go into therapy, since running away just isn't an option in 2020. And to say the last few months have been challenging for me it's the least I can say about the last few months. Um, so where does that leave me right now? It's kind of I'm trying to find my footing again, and I felt the first step was to make sure that at least financially I was okay, and then see where I could go from there. So my favorite option to kind of deal with that would of course be to work for the Hive community. So there's a Hive proposal that's up and running for the projects I'm working on. And then the second option was, well, getting a job. The probably for most people the most obvious option for me was kind of my last resort option. Um, then at one point, like, while the proposal wasn't funded yet, an opportunity came along, but they wanted a developer with experience in React.js, and I decided to take a week to deep dive into React.js, and figures whilst I was at it, I might as well kind of create something for the Hive community, right? And that's kind of how my latest project, Buy Me Berries, came into existence. I didn't end up getting the job, and in the last 2 weeks, actually, I started to really start sinking kind of back into that depression again, and that empty void, because I didn't have a job, the proposal wasn't funded, my savings just completely run out at this point, and I didn't have any opportunities to travel either. And then kind of just as fate would have it, I guess, it all kind of changed around for the better. Just 2 days ago, I got the news that the proposal has been funded, and so I can kind of start doing my all-time favorite type of work, and that's creating and improving epic dApps for all of you. Um, so there's only 14 days left on it, but I definitely see it as an opportunity to pick myself up and make sure that the Hive community is getting what it's paying for. And it seems that once again, the Hive community has given my life purpose, for which I can only be intensely grateful. Thank you, guys. So I realized that not all of you are familiar with the projects I've mentioned. So I would like to take a moment to give all of you like a short intro into the projects. You can see the URLs here if you want to take a deeper dive yourself, because I don't have that much time left. So first up, there's Pinmapple. I think this is the one most people are most familiar with. So Pinmapple is a collection of the best travel content on the Hive blockchain shown on a map. Travel bloggers pin to the map by using an invisible code in their post, and this also gives them the opportunity to get curated by the Pinmapple curation team. So with the proposal now funded, I'm going to start working on open sourcing the project in the near future. Then we have You Been Here? Have You Been Here is a social media app for travelers. You can check it in at places and share your experiences there. And then you can combine these waypoints in a post that you can then share to Hive and Pinmapple completely automatically. So every user within Have You Been Here has their own map as well, and you can link waypoints together to kind of show an entire trip, which I think is just fantastic. Now, of course, with COVID still being a pain in the ass, I decided to utilize this time to completely create the app from scratch. So improving a multitude of features based on the feedback I've gotten from all of you guys. And the current release is of course stable, and you can be used, and you can find it in both iOS and Android app stores. And then last but not least, Buy Me Berries is a web app that lets you fund all the work that you're doing and goals by accepting Hive donations. So kind of ties into the last presentation we had with the Hive tips. And so if you have a Hive account, you kind of already have your own page, and you can, of course, because of the fast transaction speed on the Hive blockchain, receive any donation within 3 seconds, which is just amazing. And then to kind of wrap up this whole talk, I just wanted to say that I'm often kind of hidden behind my projects, and I hope that this more personal story makes me more approachable. I also want to say to anyone else suffering from depression, do feel free to reach out to me. And if there is one advice that I can give, it would be to keep your options open and keep doing things. People kind of often call me lucky, but the luck I've gotten in life has really come from keeping my options open. I understand how tempting it is to just throw it all shot when you're suffering from depression. But from my personal experience, I can tell you it doesn't help. So thank you all for your time, and special thanks to all of you who've helped me along my journey. I think you know who you are, and so yeah, thank you all again, and really appreciate being here with all of you in this virtual space. Thank you guys. You guys are incredible. So
Thanks a lot, Marty. Thanks a lot.
My absolute pleasure.